Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Fitzpatrick. I'm the Director of Grants and Scholarships at the Foundation. I'm here with my two team members, Frank Caputo, Grants and Communications Coordinator, and Rebecca Farrell, Grants and Scholarships Associate. We all work together trying to help everyone through this process of grants and scholarships here at the Foundation. Uh, I'm getting a little feedback. Nope. Okay, it's gone. Today, we just wanted to go through the available grant opportunities here at the Foundation, give you some tips for a stronger application, and explain the required documentation that we require in our applications, touch on budgets and goals, and then take your questions and answers at the end. So if everyone would just make sure they're muted, and then when we do questions and answers at the end, you can unmute yourself. So the grant opportunities at the Scranton Area Community Foundation are listed on our website. That is www.safdn.org. You can do /apply for a grant, and it'll take you right to the descriptions that are below here. We offer community needs grants of up to $20,000, and we offer those twice a year. We offer them what we call our spring, which actually opened in January and has passed its due date. And then we offer them again in September. So if you're entertaining putting in an application, you do have another opportunity this year to put in an application for a community needs grants. And these grants are to provide funding for projects that help the community with needs that are in the community. We also support organizational capacity, and we also support special projects and as the Community Foundation, we are open to funding any part of the community, whether it be senior citizens, animal welfare, environmental projects, education, children and youth, all kinds of human services. So as a community foundation, we have a very broad scope of what we accept for a request for funding. So that process does start with a letter of intent. A letter of intent for the Scranton Area Foundation is not specifically a letter. We take our requests only through our grant portal, which is on our website. We have a series of questions that we ask you as an applicant, and that becomes your letter of intent. We usually have a letter of intent open to the community from anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And we review those letters and determine if your project is something that we would entertain funding. And if so, then you are invited to apply with the full application. So there is a letter of intent process that comes first. Although it's all through our portal, we no longer accept mail-in requests or emailed requests. The second type of funding that we have available at the Scranton Area Foundation is critical needs grants. These are grants up to $5,000, and they are open at all times. So they are reviewed on a rolling basis throughout the year, and they are meant for emergencies and pressing unanticipated needs that a nonprofit organization might come up against. Most recently, that has been furnaces that decide to kick in the middle of a winter season, or air conditioning that is not working in the summertime and preventing you from providing services. We have had a request for removal of a tree that came down that was blocking the entrance to a building for an organization. So these are very they're varied in their scope, but they are really meant as to cover unanticipated needs that are not necessarily in your budget and you didn't expect. So they are open, as I said, on a rolling basis throughout the year, and also can be applied for through our grant portal on our website. Um, as the community foundation, we also manage a few other foundations, one of which is the Robert H. Spitz Foundation, and we help them with their grant process, and all their grants are applied to through our portal. So this particular group has decided on 5 different funding areas that they will fund. They range from veterans affairs, animal welfare, Jewish culture and cemeteries, breaking the cycle of poverty, and the environment. These grants are available once a year, although there are 2 separate cycles because of the volume of requests that come in. They are split in the spring and in the fall. And you would have to check with us or through our portal to see when they are available for the topic that you are interested in. So those are much more topic driven. Our community needs grants at the Scranton Area Foundation are open to the public, to anything in the community. One other distinction is our community needs and critical needs grants are intended for Lackawanna County projects only. So they are to benefit the constituents of Lackawanna County. The Robert H. Spitz Foundation, their ruling is that the majority of their funding goes to Lackawanna County, although they are open to projects that are in northeastern Pennsylvania and not specifically within Lackawanna County. So that just depends on where the funding is coming from. That decides where it's able to go. So just wanted to make that distinction from the beginning. Next slide, Rebecca. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a few tips for a stronger application. Number 1, follow the instructions carefully. Please pay attention to the character limits and what are required attachments and what aren't required attachments. I think our applications are very basic and we don't ask for too much. You will see that other foundations and funding sources will get much more involved in their requests from you, but we try to keep it as simple as possible. So we don't want an entire book about what your project is. We do have character limits and hope that you will work on the answer to condense it down so that our evaluators are able to understand what you're asking for in a condensed paragraph. We need you to tell a compelling story, why your work matters. Your narrative is telling us about who you are, what you do, and why it's important. If your project that you're applying for really doesn't link back to what your mission is or how you see yourself as providing assistance to the community, it doesn't make sense to us. So always keep in mind that you are promoting what your organization does, and you want it to be as compelling a story as possible to get the attention of the evaluators. Um, and so use of clear database needs statements is really important. When you make a statement of need that childcare is very much needed in our community, back that up with some local data. Um, it is easy to get data for, say, the whole United States or the Northeastern United States. But if you can use some local data, you're really showing the situation right here in our community. So it's always good to have some database statements in your narrative. Um, your project should be aligned with our strategic focus areas, if applicable. Like I said, we as the Community Foundation will fund a lot of different focus areas, but the Robert Spitz Foundation is only funding those 5 areas. So you have to keep that in mind. Don't just try to stretch a project to fit into a specific focus area. Um, it's really important that the evaluators don't feel, oh, they're just looking for funding for this project and trying to make it fit into the request that we put out. If it's truly an environmental request, then make sure that we know that's an environmental request through your description of the project and what you intend to accomplish with the project. Um, we also are interested in your sustainability of this project. Um, you should include a clear, sustainable plan. After this funding is over with, this program will continue through reimbursements of insurance, or it will continue through 3% of our operating budget in the future, or let us know how you plan to continue it, because the funding will not be there forever. So you should always plan to be able to have a program that stands on its own feet after an initial start of the program. This is so important to please proofread. Typos and inconsistencies raise red flags with evaluators. The best thing you can do is ask a coworker or a friend to read the application before you submit it. They'll be able to say, this doesn't make any sense, or yeah, this flows from one paragraph to the next, and gives a clear and concise summary of what you are trying to accomplish. So it really make sure you proofread. It really blows our minds when we receive things that are really poorly written, or not even taking the time to capitalize in a sentence, or things like that. It doesn't look like you really cared to make sure that that application looked as presentable as possible. So next slide, Rebecca. Oops,
Sorry.
we went forward and then we went back.
We're here.
Okay. We asked for a statement of need. And this is simply how this program or project will address issues in the community and how it will benefit the population that you wish to serve. Describe what the situation is now before the solution, and then what you hope it to be after the program. Let us know the target population groups and the geographic location that you plan to serve. Again, there's that reference to Lackawanna County, and our community needs and critical needs grants are to be spent within Lackawanna County. So make sure you're submitting for a program that is just within Lackawanna County. Sometimes people submit for a large program that their organization runs um, in several counties. Um, the best way to have that looked on favorably is to separate the Lackawanna County portion out of it. We don't want to do the work and try to figure out that, 75% of your population, is residing and benefiting from the Lackawanna County program, and 25 is from the Wayne County program. We would rather that you just apply for the Lackawanna County slice of that program. Um, you should present the solution to the problem in this statement of need. And you should also describe the benefits to the audiences and the possible society at large that you hope to accomplish through this program. Next slide. Then there is your project or program description. And this is a brief description of the project for which you are requesting funds. If you're applying for operational support, you have to indicate what type of support you're seeking. Make sure that the narrative is consistent throughout the application. So if you spoke in your statement of need about correcting a situation in the community, that should carry through to your project description, and the budget should also match the narrative. So definitely keep in mind when you're giving us numbers that the narrative should correlate with those numbers. If you plan to serve 100 individuals, then in the budget you should have 100 individuals served. The evaluator should know exactly what you plan to do and how. They shouldn't have to do any guessing. One answer to a question should correlate to the next answer to a question. So it's important that you go back and read it through. We have a couple of required documents when we take your application, and the most confusing of which for many people is the Bureau of Charitable Organizations Registration, the BCO. We require this in order to ensure that you as a nonprofit are in compliance with the Pennsylvania state regulations and uphold transparency and accountability. This certification will make us confident that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing as a nonprofit. It verifies that organizations meet the legal standards, helping to maintain financial oversight and it builds donor trust. So when donors donate to the Scranton Area Foundation, we want to be able to say that we are distributing these funds to legitimate organizations. And by having you register with the state of Pennsylvania, we are able to say that our grant making policies and practices are ethical and that we are sure of the integrity of the charitable work that you're doing. So it's required because if it's a good state, it shows that you have good standing as a nonprofit in the state of Pennsylvania, and that you are complying to all the charitable solicitation laws. It helps us to confirm that you are properly registered to solicit funds. And we ask that all applicants must submit a current BCO or proof of exemption. So you don't necessarily have to have a BCO if you are exempt, and we will get to that in 1 minute. This is what the BCO document looks like. Um, Sometimes we have organizations that have come, individuals have come into a job in an organization and they don't know what they're looking for. This is what you're looking for in a BCO. Um, this QR code will take you to register with the state of Pennsylvania if you have not done so. And the cost of registering is very nominal. It depends on the amount of donations that you take in every year. It can vary from a $15 registration fee to a $125 registration fee. But it's really a good thing for your organization to have. And I will go over the exemptions in a moment. But I also want you to know that the certification has a time limit on it. They need to be renewed uh, annually, I believe it is. Um, and if you are submitting to us, we want an updated certification. We do not accept an expired one. So please be aware, as you can see right on the certification, that there are updates that need to be done, and these certifications do expire, and we can only accept it if it is up to date. So please be aware of that. Um, so there are a lot of exemptions for organizations um, that you do not have to file a BCO. Um, the number one is if your charitable organization is receiving $25,000 or less in annual gross national contributions. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't register anyhow. It's only $15 to register an organization that receives less than $25,000 in contributions. And it will still give you the status of being a legitimate nonprofit organization. Um, so religious organizations do not need to have BCO, nor hospitals or educational institutions. That's just some of the exemptions. Here is the full list of um, exemptions, and the QR code that was on the previous slide will take you to see those exemptions. We also have that on the application. We give you all the links that you need to check to see if you are exempt. If you do meet an exemption, what you need to do is just write out a note, type up something that says, as a religious organization, we are not required to register for a BCO, and upload that into where we are asking for the certification. Again, here's some more types of organizations that are exempt. But if you are a new 501c3 or growing 501c3, I suggest that you do this registration. Like I said, it will help you when you're applying for our grants and for other grants, just to show that you are aware of the registrations in the state of Pennsylvania and that you are following the rules according to the state requirements. So um, there's lots to know about a BCO. Also, we require letters of support in some cases. This is really a requirement if you are collaborating on projects and you have partner organizations. You really should have a letter of support from your partner organizations saying that they are working with you on that project. You can't just claim that another organization is working with you. You have to let us know that they are aware that you're applying for the grant and that they are also willing to participate in the project. Um, they are demonstrate community buy-in and credibility. Um, they sometimes come from local officials, which is nice to see. Not required, but definitely if you are doing a project that local officials are behind, it is excellent to ask for a letter of support for that and upload that. Um, any other beneficiaries from the program can be asked for a letter of support. It's impactful to know that the project is going to affect these individuals, and it's just helpful to you. Not required, but definitely suggested, especially when it's a collaborative project. Um, the letters of support are very necessary. We do ask for board authorization, and this is another thing that some individuals don't really understand why we do that. We would like proof from minutes or a resolution or a signed letter from the board chairman that your organization is aware that you are applying for this grant, um, that they are behind you in this project, and that you're not just off on your own applying for something that the board doesn't know about. So that's why we ask for the board authorization. And again, it can come in the form of minutes from a meeting where it was mentioned, or a resolution, or a signature on a letter from a board chair. So that's a board authorization. This is our favorite, budgets. And there's not enough that can be said about budgets. You really have to put the time into making sure your budget tells the same story that your narrative is telling. Um, you need to reflect all the income sources for your program, whether they're expected, already secured, or whether you have applied for them and waiting to hear on whether or not they are secured, and all the expenses. So we provide a template, which we will get to in the next slide, um, to help you try to disseminate where the figures go. We do not want a narrative that tells us about your budget. We want a spreadsheet that tells us about your budget. And we provide the template, so why not use our template? So it is, it should include the amount requested from the Scranton Area Foundation and what you're requesting from other income sources. Um, oops, Rebecca, can we go backwards one? As well as all of the expenses, including what is beyond the request that you're making from the Scranton Area Foundation. So let me just say here that organizations apply to us for very large projects as well as very small projects. So if you are dealing with a small project that you are looking for, say, $3,000 to accomplish something, um, and your request of $3,000 from the Scranton Area Community Foundation will cover the entire expense, then your income would be the Scranton Area Foundation Community Needs Grant at $3,000. And then your expenses on the other side of the spreadsheet will show how you're spending that $3,000. If you are applying for a very large project where you have several funders and expenses that go beyond what you're asking the Scranton Area Foundation for, that is a different budget. But in the same way, you're listing all of your income and then all of your expenses. So your budget, I can't say it enough, how it must match your proposal narrative. If you're requesting operating support, please provide a detailed budget that demonstrates the sections of the overall organizational budget, which will be supported by the grant. We look at your project budget, and then we also look at your organizational budget. And if you are asking for operational support on your project budget, and what you list in your organizational budget is totally different, that makes us wonder. If you're asking for more money in overall operation support, then your organizational budget is claiming for the year. That doesn't make sense. So we do compare the budgets, and generally your program request should be a fraction of what your organizational budget is. So we do look at both to make sure they tell the same story. So the next slide is our template that we provide on the application. Rebecca, if you could switch, thank you. This is the template that we provide for you to use as an example. And this would be the most complicated of budgets, but it's broken down very concisely, and it lists all the funding that you are expecting on the left, and then all of the expenses that you are expecting for that project on the right. The expenses should be broken down so that in categories, so that we can see, how much are you spending on marketing and outreach as opposed to program supplies. So you do want to delineate where your expenses are and let us know within program supplies how many different supplies you're looking for, and not just say, program supplies $5,000. Well, what is it that you're buying with that $5,000? Please let us know what the supplies are. So there is a little bit of a detail that really helps us understand where the money is being spent. And most importantly, your income should equal your expenses. So whatever this project is costing to run in the expenses, you should show us how you're bringing in the income for that. And if that means that your organization is also contributing to that project, then list your organization and how much you're contributing to the project. Don't make us guess that you will cover whatever isn't covered in the budget. Income should equal expenses. Please try to keep that in mind. And please don't upload a narrative budget. We really like to see spreadsheets of the numbers and details of where those numbers are being spent. So now we're going to move on to goals and anticipated outcomes, and Frank is going to take over for this section. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Can everybody hear me all right? All right, perfect, great. Yeah, so goals and outcomes. This is where you're taking really what that statement of need is, as well as your program project description, and getting into the nitty gritty of exactly, what is that project going to achieve, and how are we going to know that it's been achieved? So really two big questions there. The what question of what will this project achieve, and the how question of how will achievement be determined. So if we go to the next slide, break down that first question of what will this project achieve? So these are the goals that you're going to tell us, and they should be two things, both measurable and achievable. So when we say measurable goals, we mean that they are quantifiable, something that we can look at numbers and figure out exactly based on the number of participants in your program, or how supplies are being used, what that's going to look like in terms of a goal. So an example of a good measurable goal that is quantifiable on the left there is to say that a program will achieve a 40% employment rate among program participants within 6 months of completing the program. So that tells us a couple of things. It tells us out of the full 100% of participants, how many are you expecting are going to reach a certain goal that you're marking as being, your desired outcome. And then you're also telling us the time frame of that. So it's not just the 40% of participants, excuse me, or sorry, it's not just the 40% of employment. I can't talk that. It's not just that we're going to achieve a 40% employment rate among program participants without a time frame there. We know that we're looking within 6 months. That's not indefinite. There is a cutoff of what we're looking at. So an example there on the right of a not quantifiable measurable goal is participants will find employment after completing the program. So that's not wrong. That, like in this example, that is what this program is trying to achieve, but it doesn't give us a lot of information about, well, what does achievement look like and how will we know that? Because ultimately, we like to fund projects that are going to be successful. And this shows us really how well thought out it is on that deep achievement level. So we also say that they are achievable goals, meaning that achievable goals are measurable, so going back to quantifiable, and also realistic. So an example there on the left, 50% of students will show an improvement in attendance by being absent less than 2 days a week within 2 months of program completion. So again, it tells us how many out of 100% of participants will meet that threshold of success. It tells us what that threshold is, in this case, by being absent less than 2 days a week. And that's looking within 2 months of completing a program. So it's the realistic part of it comes in where, if you look at the example on the right, all students will show an improvement in attendance. It's rarely the case that 100% of, like, say, people participating in a program are going to meet that goal 100% of the time. Sometimes that is the case. There's always exceptions. But we'd like to see, those numbers, those percentages, and then again, the time frame. And looking at that positive example of this is imagining a scenario where it's a program that's going to help students, among other things, be less absent from school. We're not saying within 2 months they're going to be there every single day all the time, but less than 2 days a week they'll be absent. So being realistic in what we're looking for is the real point there. So going on to the next slide, so how will achievement be determined? So if we're saying things like, all right, we want to meet this threshold of this percentage of people within this amount of time, meet our goal, how are we going to know that? So in order to have those measurable goals, you need to have a metric with which you are measuring those goals. So acceptable metrics, they kind of range really depending on the project, on a spectrum between very objective metrics and subjective metrics, but they can include things such as, but not limited to, surveys, interviews, questionnaires. It really depends on the type of program, but what's important is that it should be uniform. It should be the same metric that's being used across the board for all the participants in the program, or for all of the different aspects of the program for which you're looking for your achievement. So an example of a good way of stating what your metrics are is employment rate will be tracked by checkup interviews with participants and a program follow-up survey issued 6 months after completion. So if this was a request where they're saying, again, that would be a 40% employment rate, well, again, how are we going to know that? So in this case, it's saying we're going to have checkup interviews with these participants. We're going to have a follow-up survey, again, 6 months after completion. So those are the metrics that are being used to judge that. So we know it's not subjective or it's not kind of touch and go in terms of how you're assessing that, but that there is a hard metric to refer to. And so again, on the right there, an example of a not great goal measurement is this program will achieve success when participants find employment. Again, it's not untrue, but it doesn't give us a lot of information about, well, how are we going to know that? So it's really just spelling out the goals and how they're going to be measured as explicitly as possible. Again, appropriate metrics do vary based on the project. They won't be the same thing every time. If you have questions, you can always reach out to us, and we can help you figure out what might be a good metric versus a bad metric. It's also important that every listed goal should have an accompanying metric. So if you're looking at achieving multiple things in your project, when you're listing how that's being measurement, make sure that you're touching on every single goal, because otherwise it says to us, well, maybe you know how to measure 3 out of 4 of your goals, but you don't know how you're measuring that 4th goal. So you want to make sure you're covering all your bases. Then if we go to the next slide, these are just some examples. These are honor applications as an example of like the type of information, what they might look like. So again, it's just saying quantifiable results, examples of that being 75% of participating students will demonstrate a reading level improvement by at least 1 grade level by the end of the program. So we have that percentage of participants. We have demonstrate a reading level improvement by at least 1 grade. So that's that threshold of success. And the time frame is by the end of the program. Impact on the target audience is explain how the anticipated outcomes will benefit the targeted audience or community. So an example there is engage 500 community members in conservation activities with 80% demonstrating increased knowledge and positive attitudes toward wetland preservation. Kind of like the same thing of saying that that first example, students will demonstrate reading level improvement by 1 grade. Just makes that goal shows us like what that achievement is. And that last one doesn't apply to everything, but sustainability and long-term effects to be considering the long-term effects and sustainability of those outcomes. The examples there, a 30% reduction in the incidence of preventable diseases among participants over 2 years. And again, that's really, that last example is putting a lot of stress on the time frame there. That is an important part of measuring these goals because we don't want it to go on indefinitely. There should be a cutoff.
That's great. Perfect. Thanks, Frank. That was a really good overview of what we look for in goals and impact measurement. We've gotten the question several times what to do with leftover grant monies. And just so for general knowledge, typically our grants are meant to be spent within the year that the grant is made. So we do have a reporting that is due back to us at the end of that time period. We do grant extensions in certain cases, as long as the purpose of the grant does not change. Also, if your program comes in under budget, or your time frame gets cut off, or you're unable to complete your program or your project within the time frame, just contact me and we will work together to see if we can continue doing the project or program, or if in the long run leftover funds should be returned to the foundation if you are not able to expend them on your project. So we also once in a while get inundated with an application with additional information that we do not need. So what we do not need with your application is we do not need that handwritten letter of intent that is mailed to us or emailed to us. Again, as I spoke in the beginning, the letter of intent is created through a list of questions on our portal, and that is all that is needed for a letter of intent. We do not need samples of other programs that you have run. and please do not upload annual reports. This is excess information that we really don't need. If there is something that we do need, we will contact you. But rather than have people go through the trouble of uploading things that are not necessary, just stick to what is asked for. And if you have a question about something that you would like us to see, just give us a call and we can help you add that to your application. In most cases, that's not necessary. So, um, besides those two Scranton Area Foundation grant cycles that I spoke of in the beginning, our community needs grants and our critical needs grants, we do have other grant opportunities that come up throughout the year. These are from our restricted funds, and they do vary a little bit throughout the year, and they all have their own criteria. And the best thing to do is to be on our email list, where every time a funding opportunity comes up, we are sending out a mass email to let everyone know that this funding is available. Again, all of these applications would be through our grants portal on our website. Um, and they are run differently unto themselves. So it's kind of hard to give a total, a review of everything there is. But on the next slide, Frank has put together pretty much our different, at this time, our grant programs. This is changing all the time, and you can always go on the website and go for funding and see what is available and see if it connects with any of the work that you're doing. Also, like I said, if your name and email address is not on our list, please let us know and we will make sure you get the emails that announce all the funding. Um, so, and these change as funders bring funds to us, and we are up to their discretion as to what they're looking for. So this is a changing thing. It's not like this is always the same, but for right now, this is what we're offering. Um, so I think we're at the point where we can have questions and answers. Do we have any questions in the chat? I'm wondering, and does anyone have any questions? Please unmute yourself before you speak.
There's no questions in the chat. And Rebecca, if you want to stop your screen share, we can see everyone's faces as we talk through questions.
I know that was a lot of information. We tried to go through as much as possible to just give you an overall um, of our requirements, but we would love to help anyone along the way. You can always contact us through email or through our phone system. And this is what we do. So it's not unusual to talk to people about their projects.
I'll go ahead and ask a question.
Great. Thanks, Rose. Go ahead.
Hi, I am in Luzerne County, so I know we'll be limited in our scope of grants we could apply for with you guys, but just in the overall gratitude for this presentation because it was very useful information. So thank you for this presentation. But I think I had more questions for the Robert H. Spitz grants. And I would say one of my questions would be, spring is upon us. Are they taking applications now for spring? Are we already kind of like close to those deadlines? And then when does that open up in the fall as well?
Okay, so we've been on the edge of our seats, waiting to schedule a trustee meetings with the trustees for that foundation. And we finally have it scheduled for, I believe it's 2 weeks from now. So we haven't gotten any confirmation. exactly for this year. For the past 2 years, they have had an April 1 letter of intent open on our portal. And that has been for veterans, animal welfare, and Jewish culture. And then August 1, letters of intent open for breaking the cycle of poverty and the environment. So, again, the best way to know about these things is to make sure that we have your email address, and we will be sending out notification when those funding streams open up. I can't say that this is definite for this year because we haven't met with the trustees, but it's how it's been for the last 2 years. So we're hoping that it's going to go the same way.
Okay. And then a second question would be, do you also work with other opportunities that go to your neighboring counties like us, besides like, the community needs and the critical needs? Are there any other opportunities?
So Amy is very involved in the WIP grants. And I'm not quite sure what the borders are for that, but I think they're open to other counties. You want to speak to that, Amy, at all?
Sure. We do request that you designate what funding would be spent in Lackawanna County. If you are working in a multi-county type of project, typically the WIP funds do go to Lackawanna County.
Okay.
I wasn't quite sure of that.
Yeah, you could be located in Luzerne, but if you do service in Lackawanna County, then it should be indicated in the application.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks for the questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, Sally is asking what are the names of the funds? Is that for the restricted grants processes that we listed on the previous slide?
I can drop those in the chat.
Yeah, thanks.
What was just mentioned,
The Robert Spitz
oh,
Foundation.
the WIP grants.
Women
Oh.
in philanthropy, yes.
Yeah, sorry, lots of jargon, lots of abbreviations. It's Women in Philanthropy.
UIP.
Yes. And that cycle will open very soon. So full details on the areas of impact, areas of focus for that grant will be announced very shortly.
Any other
Amy,
questions?
I was gonna say, Amy, those the WIP has their own we have our own website for women in philanthropy where that information's relayed.
It's all in the grant portal. It's all right. It'll all be in the app in the same place these other ones are listed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did have another question if no one else does.
Sure, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep them coming.
Yeah, I'll have lots of questions. I just started as an executive director for Gather Community Space, and I'm definitely looking to learn as much as I can. In regards to the goals and anticipated outcomes that was discussed, when you guys are asking for that quantifiable data and the supportive data, I know we can source it locally, but does our own data for the programming we provide that has been collected count as supported data also?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does. Yeah, we don't. I'm gonna say there's a lot of trust in the applications where we don't go out and like audit your data, and we would actually take that as like a good thing that you are collecting that data. So I think yeah, that's acceptable and works in your favor.
Okay.
And I think I guess I would just add to that that if you do have other data outside your own to support that, that helps as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I did want to say thank you for the breakdown for the examples of that quantifiable data and what that looks like. That was very helpful. Absolutely.
Rose, we have a lot of congratulations to you in the chat feed.
Thanks, you
Grateful that you're
guys.
grateful that you're on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, you guys.
Any other questions?
Okay, this is my final question, I promise. Um, so, you mentioned this when you were speaking of like, identifying your project like clearly, right, and deliverable. When your organization does like kind of have like an umbrella of services they provide, I find sometimes like that it could, I don't know, kind of dilute like your project a little bit if it seems too broad. Um, do you have any more suggestions in regards to when it comes to kind of sharing what your organization represents, but also still just focusing on that project that you are specifically getting that funding for?
So I would in your description of your organization, definitely let them know everything that your organization is involved in. But keep the description of your project solely your project. So I mean you can refer back to the fact that you do these other services, but stick to the project that you're applying for.
And in all of our applications, we ask for is it the organization description and mission statement. So we do ask for that information. So that's kind of where you could give like an overall picture, and then the project description could be those specifics.
Okay, thank you.
Amy, we're coming in on 1 minute left.
Oh my goodness. Well, with that in mind, thank you so much everyone for coming today. We thank you for taking the time to hear about this really important topic. And I know that with the response, we all are interested in this. And so because of the interest, we have a three-part series. The second part is happening on what day is this? Wednesday, March 26th. So in 3 weeks from now, from 9 to 10:30, it is in person. Ken Okrepke is going to be doing a in-depth session on creating a budget that supports your funding requests. We have a registration link that I can send out to all of you. I will do a post survey to this Lunch and Learn, and I will include the descriptions and the registration links for the upcoming two courses so that you have those as well. And so we're, suggesting if you are new to this arena or you're the grant writer or someone looking to improve your funding applications, if you're able to come, it's $15. It's a morning with myself and Ken Okrepke and probably some of our grants team as well, to really focus on the budget. The title of that is budget for greater success. And then our final part of the series is communicating your success story. So we're talking about how to apply, how to look for grants, how to create a strong budget. And now at the end, Wednesday, April 16th, will be another Zoom Lunch and Learn with our communications team. And they're going to really talk to you about creating compelling narratives. So how to take what you've accomplished and create impactful stories, however you're going to use that story. Tips for press releases, great visual storytelling, how to take great, powerful images and use those things for messaging. And then how that process works for you to get that press release out into the community, the process that's required as a grant recipient through the foundation, and finally, some social media amplification. So a lot of great resources in that Lunch and Learn. So for attending today, I will send you tomorrow I will send out a recording link for anybody in your organization who maybe didn't have a chance to attend this. The survey, I encourage you to please take a moment to fill out. As grant seekers, you can understand as grant recipients how important it is that we are able to continue receiving funding to offer these services. So we have to support our trainings with the surveys that you all graciously will fill out for us. So please do the survey link, and then there'll be links to register for the upcoming part 2 and 3 of this series. So with that, I thank you all for attending today, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you
And
all.
thank you to our grants team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
Thank
you.
you.